Well, there's one thing that's for sure is there's not going to be any big signing soon. That's one thing that is more than apparent. We're not going to get the big marquee signing in the door this week. We will get the two South Korean boys in the door, but the manager has been talking about the processes that are going on behind the scenes. He says the fact that they've been buying value players, players that can have a value in the future. He says when it comes to the future, it's too late. He says the ones that have been bringing in are basically players that we can sell on in the future and make some money off them. But Brendan Rodgers has been impressed by the process and the planning behind the scenes from Michael Nicholson. And we can all agree the way that Michael Nicholson has run the club over the last year, the last 2 years, has been absolutely fantastic. The way that he got the deal for Jota, he got the money up front, and several other things behind the scenes. He's doing extremely well, and we're all happy with the way he's going. And even the recruitment level, bringing in Mark Lawwell, a lot of people were saying it was just keeping it in the family, but Mark has done really good, and the processes that the club now have in place, Brendan Rodgers is really impressed with it, and he says going forward, he says it's going to be really good. Celtic have obviously left Portugal last week, and I've got to go on about this again. The papers are saying that the temperatures are going to be soaring over 36 degrees. It's soaring over 36 degrees every summer here in Spain. So stop with this nonsense that it's a heat wave. It's not, it's summer. The humidity is always high at this time of year. But in Yokohama, it will be around about 30 in the 30s with 80% humidity as well. And I do understand when you come from Scotland and you're not used to these temperatures, it can be a bit of a pain. Anyway, back to the football. Keith Jackson has been talking as well, and talking about the paranoia within Ibrox, and he says that there's some people within Ibrox believe that Peter Lawwell has put people in place in the SPFL just to benefit Celtic. Never mind the fact that Peter Lawwell over the years and Doncaster has looked at other opportunities for revenue, whilst them over the road have went against the sponsorship deal that the SPFL had for the last couple of seasons. Anyway, who cares? Who cares about them? When you look at the players that are in the squad already, you have to remember back to 2017, and Tony Ralston made his first appearance under Brendan Rodgers the first time round, and he kind of went off the boil and out of the picture back then. But then in comes the main man, the big Ange, and we all have to remember what an influence that Tony Ralston had the very first season Ange Postecoglou was here. And we'll all remember that goal up in Dingwall where 3 or 4 minutes in, I think it was 5 minutes into injury time, and Ralston pops up with a header from the cross and puts the ball in the back of the net, and that was basically the goal that took us on to win the league that season. And he's a fantastic player. He's a bit of an old sort of bully player. There is room for improvement, but the good news is for Tony is the boss, Brendan Rodgers, said it's been great for Tony to be able to show what he can do. He's really pleased that he got a new contract, and he's really pleased that he loves his attitude. He loves the way that he fights every single day. And Brendan Rodgers said he'll be a big part of my squad this season. So Tony Ralston is one that won't be trimmed on the squad. He is one that will be kept, and he is a good player. He's not the best right back in the world, but he is a baller. And when you need somebody to come on and just do that little bit of battling, you know, the way that he did, if he can get back to the form, that he had when his first season under Ange, I think he'll do well this season. And I think it's good that the manager, Brendan Rodgers, sees that in him and sees how much he's improved as a player. And that's what it's all about. Brendan Rodgers has also been talking about the spending. And there's been a lot of people saying, and including myself, saying that Celtic need to pull the finger out if they're going to bring in these high calibre players that we've been talking about. But Brendan Rodgers has said, he says there could be someone within your academy that you can bring through. There could be somebody in your academy that you can turn into a £9-10 million player. He says there could be somebody you can buy a player for 2 or 3 million, and they can become that 20 or 30 million pound player. Brendan Rodgers says his strength is in development and working closely with people within the squad. He says the club is in a great position He says, coming in the second time round, it's very clear. He says he's got a clear image of the type of player that he needs to bring in. They have to be first team ready. We're not bringing in players just to be squad players anymore. I think those days are kind of gone. We do have a good squad, and we have a lot of good players coming through the system again, which is really good. Celtic have always done that over the years. They always have. I mean, we should be bringing more through our academy, and even the manager last year said that. He says every year we should be looking to bring at least 1 or 2 players from the academy into the first team, and on an ongoing basis. And it's just progression. It's all about succession planning. Brendan did go on to say that when he came in, it was fair to say that he was going to assess the squad, and the club already knew there were some positions, and he knew already that there were some positions where they could improve. But after a period of assessment, what we've done is now to plan for the future. And some of the signings that have came in, reiterate that again, are ones that he thinks will be good for the future, the young ones. So he's obviously looking at players now that obviously bring in a great value. He says, but the thing is, behind the scenes, nobody can complain about the way that Nicholson has done his business over the last year. People are getting a bit paranoid, saying that it's the Lawwell effect. We're bringing in the £1 or £2 million players. The fact that the young guy that we're just bringing in from South Korea now was young player of the season in his league, so he has to be a good player if he's won that accolade, and that's something that we need to remember about. And you remember yesterday he was boasting about the fact that he's going to come in and he is going to be the best player at Celtic, and he wants to be such a good player that is sold to the English Premiership or the German league. That's his potential. That's his target, he said. So tell me in the comments what you think about how Michael Nicholson and Mark Lawwell have run the club over the last couple of years. Are you still a bit concerned about the lack of signings, or are you fully behind Brendan Rodgers in the way that he's assessed the squad? And he said there's no rush. He says it takes a bit of time. This is Brendan Rodgers' own one. Yes, there is money there, but it doesn't always mean if you spend 9 or 10 million, you're going to get a top player. Well, just look back in Scotland. There's a player called Andre Flo that came into Scottish football for 12 million. And he was a complete failure. But then we went out and got Chris Sutton and then Chris Harton for 6 million. And they were fantastic players. So you don't have to go out and spend. It is a different time and a different era. But the fact that the manager is closely working to improve the squad, and that was all that was spoke about last season also. It's about making the squad stronger. We've brought in a few players now. Have we made the squad stronger? We can't assess that yet because we haven't seen the players. People are saying, it's only there's more players from the Far East. Well, if you look at our track record of the last couple of seasons, there's only been one player that's came from the Far East that hasn't really made the grade for certain things, and that's Ideguchi. And the fact that Ideguchi's went back home and he's got that year-long loan to sort of sort himself out and get his fitness back up, he could still come back and be a fantastic player. You've got to remember, on paper, and what everyone was saying beforehand, is Ideguchi was actually going to be the better player out of Hatate and everybody that came over. So let's just get the guys in the door that we've signed so far. So let's assess the squad on performances and not get too carried away about this whole thing about going and buying 10 and 12 million pound players, because it isn't the Celtic model. It hasn't been the Celtic model for a long time. I think the biggest chunk of money that we could spend is probably on Kieran Tierney, and there could be even there's people now talking about the fact that if we can get the price right from Arsenal, Kieran is now ready and thinking about changing his wage demands to drop down to the level that Celtic are now at. You've got to remember, players are now on the best part of 50 grand plus at Celtic, which hasn't been done before. And the fact that we've now put Callum and Rio Hatate, Dyson Maida, and Kyogo on big wages to make sure that if anyone comes into the club, they're going to have to spend big money to get our players. And that is the way forward. So tell me what you think about Tony Ralston and the fact that Brendan Rodgers sees him as a big player in the squad this season. Tell me what you think about it in the comments. I will miss the game today. I'm absolutely gutted. I'm absolutely gutted. I might try and catch the first 20 minutes before I board the plane. But other than that, have a great day, Celtic fans all around the world.
Lit. Roll up to the party. Roll up to the party. Roll up to the